Aemeath's attributes have been revealed. Let's talk about it. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So, we have now gotten Aemeath's attributes. We have already discerned that it is highly likely that she is going to have something to do with Toonbreak. However, I believe that from these new attribute reveals, we can perhaps make a few more guesses, because this gives us a little bit more to work with. It seems like attributes generally don't really contribute to much when it comes to guessing what a character can potentially do, but I would say there are still some pieces of information that we can guess, with one of them being teammate synergies and another being weapon synergies. When it comes to weapons, we do have some good 5-star swords. For budget options, we obviously have Emerald of Genesis, which is just generally a good sword, and we did recently get a brand new sword with Laser Shearer. The passive of it caters to Toon's Strain, so if Aemeath ends up working with Toon's Strain in particular, or if she prefers it, then I assume that Laser Shearer is probably going to be good for her. Otherwise, we do have a pretty wide collection of 5-star swords, so options-wise, unless they give her something hyper-specific, I think she's probably going to be fine. And then in terms of her attribute, so I'm sure you might be expecting me to complain about the fact that we're getting another fusion, and while yes, oh my goodness, another fusion character, I will say in this case, I'm actually okay with it, because I would rather she potentially works with the large cast of fusion characters we currently have, rather than her being something else and not really being able to benefit from fusion units that much, because we do have quite a wide variety of fusions at this stage, and because of that, she may not require Linny in order to be good, and this is because of one simple thing. Or rather, one simple character, Lupa. Lupa is absolutely broken for fusion teams of any variety. It doesn't matter which fusion character you're playing as your DPS, Lupa is going to be good. She is amazing for fusion characters. She was on her release, and she still is now. And because Kuro Games keeps increasing the stonks of fusion over time, Lupa is only starting to look like a better and better investment. And I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if Lupa does not work well with Aemeath. They would have to make a really hyper-specific kit in order to make the dedicated fusion 3rd slot teammate not good with Aemeath, assuming that she does damage of any variety. Because here's the thing, this applies regardless of whatever Aemeath ends up doing. Now if Aemeath ends up surprising us all and ends up being a 3rd slot teammate, which is highly unlikely in my opinion, then I believe that Lupa is going to be very good for her no matter the case, because if she's a 2nd slot teammate, she is going to benefit, and if she is a 1st slot teammate, she is going to benefit, no matter what. The reason why I'm pretty confident that Aemeath is not a 3rd slot teammate is because we are getting Mornier very soon, and generally, Kuro doesn't make 3rd slot teammates super often, especially when they're like Mornier and Shorekeeper, so I honestly don't expect them to make another 3rd slot teammate that soon, especially because Aemeath is a focus character, so I kind of doubt that even if she was a 3rd slot teammate, she would be niche, because we are most likely getting Mornier as our Toonbreak 3rd slot teammate. So, with that in mind, I think it only really opens up room for Aemeath to be a 1st slot teammate, simply because we haven't gotten a DPS in a while, which is unusual for Kuro Games, and because it is pretty clear that they are likely looking to complete the Toonbreak core. She could end up doing something completely different, I am not ruling that out, because Kuro is unpredictable. They genuinely could throw anything at us. However, because she is fusion, I feel very assured that at the very least, if you have Lupa, it is highly likely that she is going to end up forming some of Aemeath's other alternative teams. I would be very surprised if that's not the case. She would have to seriously not care about fusion-based buffs in order to not benefit from Lupa whatsoever, and I just kinda doubt that that's gonna be the case. Now, I don't necessarily think that this means Aemeath is going to be budget-friendly, because what makes a character budget-friendly is when they're like Augusta, a character that is able to effectively use a 4-star teammate very, very nicely. This makes Augusta an excellent budget character, or a really good example of a budget character would be somebody like Phoebe. She has teams that you can comprise of fully 4-star teammates, or fully free teammates even. And while Spectro Rover Sanhua isn't Phoebe's best team, not by a long shot, she has far better premium options these days, the point stands that she is still a pretty efficient budget character. And while Furlova definitely gets a big boost from having premium teammates, unlike Augusta who can generally go with Mortefi and not really feel like she's missing out on much, I will say Furlova still feels really strong even if you're still using Dungeon as a 2nd slot teammate for her. So, those would be examples of budget units in my opinion, and whether Aemeath is going to be like that or not completely depends on whether she's going to be able to utilize 4-stars like Mortefi or Sanhua well, which I kind of doubt. It's always kind of a 50-50 if that ends up being the case or not. We're gonna have to see. But what I will say is that because she is fusion, this means that we might end up with a character that is not strictly going to require another character in order to be good. Now, obviously, we have to wait and see. How dependent is Aemeath going to be on Linny? How dependent is she going to be on Mornier? We have to actually wait for Mornier to come out too. All around, we do still have some variables here, and I can't really confidently say that this means that Aemeath is totally going to be safe from a negative status situation. I'm gonna be honest, we're still gonna have to wait. We are still gonna have to be cautious. And I say this because it's not too good to get excited too prematurely, because this is still ultimately just me talking based on an image that showcases that this character is going to be fusion and use a sword. Those things do tell us some things, but they don't guarantee anything, and the most that we can currently do is just speculate. And I am really hoping for this to be true. I am hoping that Aemeath is not going to require Linny in order to be good. I hope that at the very least she has alternatives, because that's a big issue. For example, let's take Zani. She is probably one of the worst cases of this. If you give her a Shakona, that does not compensate for what Phoebe gives her whatsoever. It does not fix the issue. No other 5-star is really able to compensate for a lack of Phoebe. So not only is she not budget friendly, but even if you don't have her specific 5-star, no other 5-star is really going to be able to replicate what you're losing. Same situation with Cardathea until we recently got Chisa, who while she isn't able to fully compensate for what Shakona provides her, she is at least able to make Cardathea playable without Shakona. Now, that's still not really that good, and it's still definitely not an ideal situation, but at least it's better than what's up with Zani. So, with Aemeath, if she at the very least has other 5-star teammates that she can use, I think that is going to put her in a better position than the negative status characters, and then I will have more faith in the future of Toonbreak. I think Toonbreak can be handled well. I don't think Toonbreak has to be something that is handled poorly. It has potential to be good, but whether it's going to be good or not really rests on the shoulders of this character, or at least I am assuming it rests on the shoulders of this character, unless she ends up having nothing to do with Toonbreak, which could be funny. Maybe I'm saying all this, oh yeah, she's probably going to use Toonbreak, and then she has nothing to do with it, but come on, I feel like that's really unlikely. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she genuinely just has nothing to do with Toonbreak. That would be a hilarious situation, but I just think it's a bit odd that Kuro prioritized releasing Toonbreak supports in 3.0, and then they wouldn't follow up with a Toonbreak DPS. So obviously I am expecting the Toonbreak characters to be her best in slot. I'm just hoping she doesn't feel borderline unplayable without said supports. That is my main concern. Negative statuses were really damaging. Zani and Cardathea were very popular Rinasita characters, and their kits just weren't handled well. Yes, you can clear with them, but that's not the point. So while I'm usually against mega pushing fusion because I feel like we already have so many and other attributes deserve more attention, maybe I'm just salty that we don't have more Glacios, but anyways, I do think in this instance, considering the predicament we're in and how it's kind of unknown how the future of Toonbreak is going to go, I'll actually happily welcome it this time, because from a meta perspective, I feel like this could end up being a lot healthier as opposed to her being something else and not being able to utilize more general teammates. Because it's not just Lupa, we have plenty of other fusion characters that are able to provide fusion damage bonus on Outro, Chang-Li, Brant Wuthering Waves, both of which are characters that can fit into numerous different situations. So all around, it does look like simply being fusion does make you a little bit more accessible than the average character. Now, yes, the low 4-star issue does still remain, but that's just kind of Wuthering Waves not really adding 4 stars. This is a very known issue by this point. I'm sure Kuro themselves is aware of it, and if they're not making more 4 stars at this point, I think that's a deliberate choice. But ultimately, in terms of at least 5-star teammate flexibility, I do think that she should be able to have a couple more options than the average 5-star, because at least having options is important. And I do hope she does have options. We're gonna have to see how her kit is handled. I seriously hope she's not gonna be super restrictive, Because here's the thing, it's okay if the Tomb Break core is definitively her best installed team. That much will be pretty obvious if she does end up being a Tomb Break DPS. However, I do still think she should at least feel good to play without those characters. That's the big issue I have with the negative status units. They straight up just don't feel good to play. And while I suppose you could argue that's subjective, I think if a mass majority of people are agreeing with that, I think it can be agreed upon that negative statuses were just bad kit design, and I just don't want a repeat of that. In any case, here's hoping that Aemeath is handled well. I think there is potential here, and she is an exciting unit. Fusion, for once, I think was actually a good choice here, because I think it provides the opportunity for this character to potentially be handled better than if she had literally any other attribute. Usually, I don't put too much importance on attributes, but I think for once, this is a case where an attribute does matter. So, you know what, I'm actually happy about her being Fusion for once. Hopefully this video was able to feed you some food for thought in regards to Aemeath's attributes. This has been Juice, signing out, and wouldn't it just be a joke and a half if she ended up having nothing to do with Tomb Break?